guys, welcome to another episode of Think a Thema. I'm Amy and this is my lovely girlfriend Maggie.
Hello.
And today we are reviewing Snowdonia. Snowdonia, in particular, the deluxe edition, the deluxe master set that incorporates a lot of the content that was created by not just the designer Tony Boydell, but also other fans of the game and kind of different variants that have been created over time, all into one amazing jam-packed box of fun.
Great stuff, yes. So essentially in Snowdonia, what you're trying to do is you're all competing companies trying to help the creation of the railway up the Welsh Mountains, up Snowdon. And so as part of that, some of the things that you'll get to do is help with the getting rid of rubble. You'll be picking up contracts along the way to help you do different things and give you additional bonuses, and essentially you're going to be rewarded for being the most helpful company in helping achieve this. Along the way, you're also going to be able to have access to trains to help you bring in additional workers or to help you with exchanging resources, again all in the aim of constructing the railway, along with stations and different facilities along the way.
In terms of the workers in this game, you actually have quite a limited number. You have 2 workers available to you, and as Maggie said, sometimes you'll have the opportunity to add a third. In this game, there are worker placement spots at the top of the board where you can take different actions. So these actions allow you to do things like collect resources. So you can collect raw resources that are going to help you build pieces of track and contribute to the railway. You can excavate. As Maggie mentioned, you're trying to make your way up the mountain. And what I love about this game is everybody is on this same journey of traveling up the mountain. You have to excavate before you can build track, and everybody is in the same boat in that. And once we've built the track, then we can build a station, and then that station is available for victory points. So back to what you can do. So there are limited worker placement spots as the game scales. I've played this with 2 players. We've played a lot with 3 players and with 4 players, and I think the game scales incredibly well. But in order to allow that scaling, the worker placement spots do change. They have cards that go over the top of the spots to make it tighter and more competitive when there are fewer players. But you're competing for resources, for the ability to excavate up the mountain. You can convert your raw resources into pieces of track or stone, which can help you achieve objectives. You can lay track. You can build, contribute to stations. You can buy trains. And then there's this element of the changing weather. And the changing weather dictates what you can achieve each round. So there are 2 real contributors to the track. The first is getting rid of the rubble, excavating. The second is turning over the cards that are then excavated to become a piece of track. And when you build that piece of track, you get to place one of your limited player tokens onto that, your ownership tokens, onto that space to show that you were the one that built that railway, and at the end of the game you will be the one that claims those victory points. But you can only build under certain weather conditions. When it's foggy, you actually can't excavate and you can't lay down track. And when it's sunny, it allows you to excavate more rubble. And when it's raining, it becomes more problematic to excavate rubble, which is like highly thematic, and it makes
harder to lay track as well.
And harder to lay track, yeah. So it makes a lot of sense, but every round the weather's changing. You can see how the weather is going to change in the next 2 rounds. And the way that is dictated is by the upcoming objective cards. So they have 2 purposes. The first is that they show you what the weather is going to be like in the future. So future Amy, it's going to be raining. And then once they turn over, they become objective cards that you can collect that in and of themselves have 2 primary functions. The first is that you can tap those cards once per game in order to give you a special effect when you are converting resources or doing any of the actions really. It gives you a bit of a bonus. And the other thing, and importantly, and something that you can't go without in this game, is it gives you a unique end game objective. And so that might be, in the case of this card here, to build one piece of track. And if you do that, you'll get a bonus 4 victory points at the end of the game. But there are cards in here that are extremely powerful, that give you really quite bold objectives, where here's an example of one. You have to excavate 16 pieces of rubble and then you'll get 21 victory points at the end of the game. And those victory points are going to be the difference between winning and losing this game. They are big amounts of victory points, and you can't really get to the winning position without having them, especially if your competitors are going for them.
Yep.
The other component of this game is that there are events that happen throughout the game that are going to speed up the process of the starting at the bottom of the hill all the way through to the top station. And that is the game kind of setting a timer. And I think that's really clever. So at the end of each round, you'll be pulling out, in the case of a 2-player game, 6 resources from the bag. And those 6 resources will be topping up the publicly available resources, which means that there is a finite number of each resource. And because there is also these white cubes in here that trigger events, what happens is, if people are hoarding resources, it's going to end the game quicker because you're more likely to pull out these events. And when you pull out these events, it does things like excavates the next card, or it builds the next piece of track, or it shuts down a station, meaning that you can no longer build there, and essentially forcing people up the mountain. And so that's a really clever way that the game kind of creates a bit of tension, because that objective that you're trying to achieve might disappear because of one of the events. Yeah. The other thing that I really like about this game is that all of the different sections of track, all of the different stations, they're all individual cards. And what that means is, instead of being printed on the board, it means that a game can be radically different if you use, especially in this deluxe set, a different set of station and railway cards. It means that you can create a whole new experience. And I would just want to put out there, we are not train people.
No.
No.
Not at all.
Not train people. If you love trains, you would love...
You will lose it over this.
Love the theme of this game.
So, yeah, it's so well integrated, essentially, and all the different possible rail tracks that you can access, and even different countries. So rail tracks in different countries.
Yeah, so the deluxe edition comes with a scenario book, and the scenario book relates to a different set of cards that you can set out, and then all of a sudden, instead of being on a Welsh railway, you are in the middle of Japan, and everything looks very Japanese, and it is incredibly thematic and engaging, even as people who don't like trains. It does make you feel like you're contributing to a different railway around the world. And also, I think that even if you don't like trains, there's such a nice progression to this game. I just love that instead of a normal worker placement game where everybody's like doing their own thing and there's a million different ways to get victory points, and you're over here and someone else is over there doing something else. Here, everybody is like just following this sequence of excavating and building track. Everybody is on the same timeline. Everybody is on the same path. And I think that's what makes it really unique. And also it makes it really easy to teach to someone who has, a simple grasp of probably worker placement mechanics. It's not the most difficult game to get a handle on, because you can't build the track at the top end of the mountain until you've done the bottom end, and everyone's working at the bottom end. There's fewer options for you. You have to kind of contribute down here, otherwise you're going to be not making any victory points.
It's not as overwhelming from a choice point of view as some other games might be.
Yeah, and I think because of that reason, it has a really nice flow to it. I really enjoy that it's quite a relaxing game. It's not like there's tension, but you can always feel like you're achieving something in this game, that you're working towards building that next piece of track, or you're going to grab that objective card before somebody else does. But it's not nasty. It's not when someone takes something, you just, well, okay, I'll just start chipping away at the next thing. And for that reason, I just think it's a really nice game. At the end, it's really kind of unclear who's going to win, I think, because of the objective cards and because it's quite obscured in terms of adding up all of the different points that people have got from tracks and station building. And if you were going to get this game, I would highly recommend trying to seek out the Deluxe Master Set because of all of we have not even barely cracked the surface of the number of expansions that are in the box and the number of scenarios. You could be playing this for a really long time. And I think that it's one of those rare two-player worker placement games. It works really well at 2 players. It scales well at all numbers, but 2 players, I think it's really hard to find a game that kind of has the right amount of tension.
Yeah.
And the components are just beautiful. There's the silk screened meeples, and there's like little goats, and there's just all these like fun
dynamite and
variants. And I think it's just such a solid design, and I think it's just one of those timeless games.
Yeah, I agree. I love also the fact that you can have, even though, as you said, like you're quite concentrated, in whatever stage of the mountain you're in, you can't really jump ahead, really, because everyone's kind of working on the same in the same area. You still obviously have a lot of options in terms of what your strategy is going to be and where you're going to try and collect your points, and you still obviously have different options in terms of even planning ahead, knowing what the weather is going to be like coming up, and so there's quite a lot of flexibility, but also a very nice kind of streamlined sort of focus mostly throughout the game. There's also the sense of for me, it kind of triggers a sense of like creative, like you actually feel like you're putting something together, like you're creating something, and it's a beautiful kind of tension between you're all helping create this one thing, but you're also competing individually. And so I think with the contracts, which act as your end game kind of points conditions, they can actually end up dictating your strategy along the way. So you could end up, with a couple of people having very different strategies, even though you're all working towards the same thing. And I just love it. It doesn't really feel take that kind of competitive along the way.
No, not at all. Aside from someone achieving building something on the station you were going to, but then you can kind of reallocate those resources to something else. And I think that having the track laid out, it acts as a visual timer for the game. So you can see when, it's getting close to the end of the game. So you're kind of doing that panic, okay, where can I get best bang for buck for victory points? I also just will add that I love this idea of like your third worker being at the pub until you need to use him, and trains enable you to have the potential to add that third worker in a round. And then once he's used, he goes back to the pub. So very cute. I'd highly recommend this game. It definitely will be one that we will keep in our collection. I think I would recommend this this game would be good if I've got a mixed group of people, like some people who are a bit more like mid-weight, and then there's some heavyweight kind of gamers. I think it's a good kind of even playing field.
Yeah, it's a good crowd pleaser, I think.
Someone is not going to be able to get a runaway lead in this game, but also if you're new to worker placement, it's not too difficult to grasp. So there is definitely a place for this. I love Snowdonia. It's a great game.
And I genuinely feel like it's a nice, whenever it's suggested as, hey, should we play this? I always get like a nice, fuzzy, like warm feeling. It's like,
Snowdonia.
It's fun, it feels productive, because you actually do, like, I think from an integration point of view, it does feel like they did a really good job at you making it feel like you're first getting rid of the rubble. You're also then along the way collecting the resources that you can lay down the track, and you kind of weighing up and down whether or not it's going to be worthwhile getting a train, and so that you can do additional things. And the contracts, I think it was really beautifully integrated. It's not going to make your brain hurt, but there's enough to sink your teeth into if you're a bit of a gamer. And from playing it multiple times, like every time, I tend to be the type of person that I just want to kind of try a strategy and see how that plays out. I'm not very good at adapting and being
being
flexible.
opportunistic.
And
I'm a bit more
She's very
opportunistic.
opportunistic, which means that she ends up winning most of the time. But even then, like even if I lose, which I often do, I still enjoy the process because there's still a sense of accomplishment along the way as you're trying out different things and getting to add your little tokens to your ownership claim to all the different bits that you've helped create along the way. So yeah, great game.
Great game. We're keeping it in our collection.
For sure.
I think, seek out the big box. And that's Snowdonia. If you enjoyed this review, please subscribe and you'll be notified about our upcoming reviews. And there's a few of them. We've got a large a shelf of shame that we're working our way through in winter in Melbourne.
Perfect lockdown activity.
Lockdown activity. But thanks for joining us and we'll see you next time. Bye.